everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Belgian Football Podcast. My name's Scott Coyne, and I'll be your host for this episode. Second week in a row, you have me hosting. What on earth have I done to deserve this? Well, those of you that weren't with us last week, who have hopefully caught up on what you missed, will know that our Ben is still on his honeymoon and having a great time. We have no doubt about that at all. But before we crack on and review the latest action across the Pro League and the Challenger Pro League, we need to check in with our Joris and see how he's doing, because, of course, this is us coming off the back of a brilliant week for Belgian sides in Europe. Joris, have you recovered from your coefficient party frenzy?
Well, it would be more fun for me if Genk would also be part of it, but they also had a really good result this weekend, so definitely I'm dancing. You can't see that, so dear listeners. I'm sorry, but I am.
Yeah, one of the hazards of podcasting, what you can't see, is true. He actually is. Of course, we had a frenzy of coefficient excitement because the three wins and a draw, which we'll get to talking about in a little bit more detail later on, is the best week in years for Belgian sides in Europe, and we really enjoyed that. We certainly didn't see that coming, so hopefully we have more of that this week. Speaking of excitement, let's dive in and review all the latest action then, Joris. Match day 8, of course, now in the books. We score roundup first of all, as always. Friday night kicked off with St Truden 1, Standard Liège 2. Saturday saw Kortrijk losing convincingly 4-1 at home to Mechelen. Oostend winning 1-0 against Eupen, Serang losing 2-0 at home to Club Brugge, and Leuven winning 3-2 at home to Charleroi, which was one of the games of the weekend. Sunday saw Westerlo winning 2-1 at home against Anderlecht, Cercle Bruges losing 2-0 to Antwerp, Union Saint-Gilloise losing 2-1 at the Marien to Joris's team Genk, and Ghent winning 2-0 at home to Zulte Waregem. So let's start, as always, with the Friday evening game, which was the Canaries against Ronnie Dyla's Standard. And how's about this, Joris? Standard have now won 3 games in a row. So I suppose the first question is, do you see any tiny green shoots there?
They have been performing well. I don't know. Last week it was already a stat for the 2 wins in a row, 3 wins in a row. Has to be a few years back, I suppose now. So that had been a while. And I can also mention some other interesting stat about this specific fixture. It was the first victory in 15 years for Standard in Sint-Truiden. Of course, a few years of those Sint-Truiden were not in the first tier, but still a considerable amount of years and games that they had to wait. In addition to the 3 wins in a row, this time they conceded from the spot, but defensively they seem to be improving. Up front, I'm still not too convinced, to be fair, though. But they did score. They got 2 shots on target, I believe, and they did score twice. So that's efficient at least. And I believe that means 1 shot more than the extra goal, because to come already to Sint-Truiden as well, they on the other hand had 22 shots, but only 5 on target, so also not that many. So they also missed something there, and they gave away the goals a bit as well, especially Leisner with the second one, where he initially gives the ball away, and then also unfortunately for him, he's too late and touches the ball by accident into his own net. So not the best performance of the usually really well defending Sint-Truiden defense.
Yeah, I think one of the things I took away from this game was the fact that although Standard didn't actually create that much, what they did create was the difference, and they took their chances. So, over the last 3 weeks, there has been, as you were saying, an increase in their efficiency, and they're starting to take the opportunities that they are creating. Obviously, as we know, heavily relying on, Raskan and Amala. still at the moment. The kind of guaranteed quality that they have, and Amala was responsible really for the first goal, cracking assist. That pass that kind of split the defence open was great. But I think it's very encouraging for Ronnie Dyla now that they are taking the opportunities that they're creating, and that's going to be very, very important to them. I think their transfer window was, it's too early to pass a kind of final judgment on it at the moment, but I think it was reasonably effective in that they got a good number of players out and brought in a number who they think obviously can make a quantifiable difference, hopefully, in terms of a small quality injection at this stage, while getting the wage bill down. So there are some things off the pitch structurally that I think are probably moving slowly in the right direction. This is a good win for them against a side which we know are difficult to beat, who, they were a little bit off it this week, the Canaries, I thought, not quite as good in a lot of the 50-50s as well. Yeah, I think some tiny green shoots from Standard. We'll see how they get on in the coming weeks, because, I think, being able to throw three wins together is something they've not been able to do, as we're saying, for such a long time, that's something solid for them to kind of continue working on. We did see a little bit, interestingly as well, of one of the new signings. We saw half an hour from Filippo Melagoni, the Italian loan signing who's come in from Genoa, which is an interesting one in itself, because that's one of Standard's now parent clubs under the 777 banner. So I thought that was interesting in itself. Let's move on, shall we, to the Guildensporen, where Kortrijk lost 4-1 to Danny Boyce's Mechelen. What did you make of this game, Joris? Because we were talking about how worried we were about Kortrijk last week, and I certainly didn't see anything to change my mind this week.
No, you're right. This was a very worrying performance from Kortrijk. Also, again, a player losing control over the ball, or in this case, more over his body in their own defense, which gave away a goal quite cheaply. In case Van den Driessen, we did it, and I'm referring to Salamani doing a similar thing, but more with the ball against Club Brugge. Yeah, such kind of giveaway goals, you can't give them away if you're upfront yourself, not delivering in any circumstance. He should not give away goals like that. But yeah, that makes it even more difficult to get something out of any game. On the other hand, that much like Sint-Truiden, they're also very much not efficient. I guess I touched on it with my first comment already as well here. Up front, they're getting some shots in, but they're not creating that much still, and definitely nothing tangible. That's not going to help them. Yeah, it might be noteworthy that Lamkelzee got his first goal from the penalty spot as well, but apart from that, he did not do much either. And there's also still the unclear Salamani situation. So I'm guessing the dressing room situation is also not that great at the moment, still, with all this uncertainty. And we'll have to see how it goes.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. The early indications are that they're going to rely quite heavily on Lamkelzee. He appears to be, the one they're expecting to really produce for them offensively. And I thought he was working kind of quite hard, and had a reasonably good game actually. Interesting, like you say, he's got his first goal now, so that's going to be good for his confidence. I'm slightly surprised that he's been the one that's been chosen to be the main man for them in a way, because of, well, just his past behaviour. It's certainly a risky choice, but they're obviously giving him that responsibility and hoping that the consistency and the responsibility that goes with being asked to do that is going to keep him, how can I put it, kind of calm, and keep him focused on action on the pitch. And that's quite an interesting kind of coaching approach, I think. So we'll see how that goes in the coming weeks. Mechelen, interestingly, I mean, obviously could have scored far more than 4 in this game than they actually did. I was talking last week about some of the injuries, a little bit more stability about them this week. I thought, Storm looks a little bit more fit. Berger Verstraet's come in, a little bit of steel in the middle of the park there, which has certainly been missing since they lost Vinicius Souza, who was so impressive for them last season. So probably the hope is he can fulfill that role, and he certainly had a decent game. I think a big win like that was important for them. I think there were, I used the word brittle in relation to them a lot last week. and that's not something we can use in relation to them this week. I thought Rob Scouse was very good. A couple of goals, could have had more, probably should have had more. Almost scored two identical goals in this game, actually, which amused me. But he had a pretty good game, and a lot of the good stuff that the Mechelen did this weekend came directly through him. Cruz is starting to look not bad as well. So some more positive signs from Malin this week.
I am going to mention that scoring more goals is difficult when you have 5 shots on target and one of your goals is from the rebound of one shot on target. So they were for once quite efficient. Kortrijk even had a similar XG without the penalty, I would say. Now they actually have a better XG across the whole game. I'm not completely convinced either. Also, there's a funny thing with Schoofs. Last season he was only scoring screamers. Now he's only scoring deflected goals, but he already put 4 in the net that way. 4 deflected goals. So the quality of the goal is maybe a bit less, but they all count. So the quantity is actually increasing. It looks like so that's a positive for him and for the team. I'm sure. Yeah, these were my main points. Like I'm not sure. I wasn't too convinced. Like all stats in the game actually were quite even. Possession also 50-50, so can't get more even than that. So 12 shots against 10, 3 on target from Kortrijk, 5 from Mechelen. It was a harsh result, I would even say.
I think the narrative of this game is similar to the game at Steyr between St Trude and the Standard, and that the winning side was the side that actually took the chances that they did have. I think you're right. I think the 4 goals do flatter Mechelen a little bit and make it look like they steamrolled Kortrijk when actually on the balance of play they kind of didn't when you pick apart the numbers. But it'll be interesting to see if Mechelen can build upon a result like that, because I think they needed something like that to kind of get them going in terms of their consistency, and that's what I will selfishly be looking for in the coming weeks. Shall we move a wee bit further out to the coast to Oostend, who managed to get a 1-0 win against Eupen, and of course Eupen managed to bring in new signing Mubarak Wakazo to the starting lineup for the first time this weekend, who interestingly, listeners, and I'm sure Ben might mention this when he's back, Mubarak Wakazo is actually our Ben's favourite player of all time. So to have him playing in the Pro League with Eupen, who are a side that our Ben has a little soft spot for a number of reasons, is something we're probably going to hear quite a lot more about, isn't it, Joris?
Most likely, yes, definitely. We'll let him clarify that at later stages. I'm sure that I personally did not watch this game to get to that, but for Ostend a very, very vital win, definitely after 4 consecutive losses. Yeah, they did need this win in this kind of game. Also, it was a bit funny to see Albanese getting a red card, well, a second yellow card for diving. That's quite possibly the worst way to get your second yellow card. I guess. And also noteworthy for Ostende is that they got their first clean sheet of the season. Again, much needed. It already made them win this game with just scoring 1 goal, but which it was then enough. To touch on Eupen straight away then as well. They did have the possession in the game, if I saw the stats right, but if I watched after the highlights, no firepower. I was also a bit confused that Prevlajak got benched. I did not see any news about a sickness or injury, but I'm assuming that must have been the case because, of course, this does not help with that firepower to have their main strikers there. Again, the same old story, and we're only 8 games in, but like they're losing the kind of games that they should regularly get points off. Same story as we talked about last week already.
Yeah, I think you covered all the main points there from that game really well, Joris. It's becoming a bit of a trend, this, isn't it? The thing you mentioned last there about Eupen not picking up any points against the sides that they're really going to have to get points off, sides that are going to be in and about them down at the bottom kind of all season. It's an interesting trend that's developing this, and something that, as we pointed out last week, they're going to have to address if they're going to have any hopes of staying in the top division. Oostend, probably deserving winners in this game, I thought. They had a goal chopped off for VAR that was probably rightly chopped off as well. Small margins again. Nick Batsler, who had quite a good game, obviously getting the winning goal. It'll be disappointing for Eupen, I think, and Bernd Stork that they're playing over half an hour of the game against 10 men and not being able to get anything out of it will be kind of quite frustrating, and this is where the likes of, Prevoyak not playing the whole game, I think not being 100% fit being the main reason, is going to be a sore one for them. Particularly when you look at some of their fixtures kind of coming up. Eupen, to me, feel like they're on a bit of a, weird phrase this, everybody, a bit of a sugary peg, as we might say in Scotland. You know what I mean? The things aren't quite going their way at the moment, for lots of reasons. Ostend, on the other hand, have got an interesting game next week, I think, in terms of points. They're away to Cercle, and that's becoming a bigger game now for a number of reasons for both sides.
Yes, definitely. And yeah, Yves van der Hagen going for a 6-point game, so if we, as we call it, yeah, against his former team. So he will be extra motivated, I'm sure, but will hopefully for him he can also bring that over to his players.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one to watch this coming weekend, I think. Let's move down to Wallonia, shall we, and just head to just outside Liège, go to Serang, who lost 2-0 against Club Brugge. And I think Serang, a bit of deja vu here, Joris, isn't it? Being their own worst enemy, really, and giving some goals away.
There's a few things for them that I want to say, but that's definitely one of them. They, at the moment that they were actually creating some things themselves, that was in the beginning of the second half. Again, like maybe against Genk, they started giving away the goals and yeah, shot themselves in the foot. While in the first half they didn't create anything themselves, but they were managed to keep Club at bay. I think Club had 2 shots in the first half and none on target. So yeah, that's the job well done. It was basically mating for the right moment, though. It was going to happen at some point. The actual factor for Serie as well that played well very much in their favor was like the first rain fell after not that well after a long time of droughts. But I guess everyone around Europe at least has experienced that more or less. That rain had really soaked into the pitch and it made it quite unplayable. Definitely at certain corners of the pitch. And I'm actually a bit surprised that the game went on like that, because it was a bit of a pool in the middle of the summer, which is even worse than a pool in the middle of winter, I guess, in the sense of professionalism. So yeah, had a good spell in the held Club Brugge in the first half, had a good spell in the first minutes of the second half, but then gave away a goal, which was Van Aken's 100 goal in the Pro League. That's worth mentioning. So in the Pro League, not for Club Brugge, but well, also for Loke, but combined. And on the other hand, that was I'm mistaken here. That was a second goal, but the first goal on the other hand actually was another mark. The first goal from Kyle Laren for Club Brugge. He also really needed that, I think, and yeah, he's off the mark now, so that's good for him. And also worth mentioning for Club Brugge maybe is that they did rotate quite a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I was really quite surprised by the amount of rotation that Karl Hofkins used. Obviously, we're at that stage of the season now where the teams playing in Europe are going to be using a little bit more rotation and making use of that squad depth. But the amount of changes was a bit of a surprise to me. I suppose if you're going to make those changes anywhere, then it's going to be in a game like this where you would be expected to win, regardless of which side that you put out. But I was surprised, particularly by some of them. I mean, to see Balanta, who regular listeners will know is one of my favourites, not was probably the biggest surprise of the lot. I mean, he's a player who I was slightly surprised didn't leave Club Brugge during the transfer window, because he was told he could find a new club, couldn't get anything over the line. So that was a big surprise for me. But yeah, Kyle Larin getting his first goal, I think, kind of important. Yaramchuk as well getting his first start for Club Brugge, which is very important for him, I think, on a personal level. That was certainly interesting. And likewise, Bayata, another one, important for him to get game time in his legs, because I think he would have be surprised not to have seen a little bit more game time so far. But very professional from Club Brugge, and job done.
I guess an expected result as well for I guess both sides would have written down these results in advance.
There's not really a great deal to say about this game other than it went entirely as expected. So we'll move on to Dendreef, where Leuven got a rather dramatic 3-2 home win against Charleroi. And I suppose the most interesting thing about this game for me is Mario Gonzalez, of course, Leuven's new striker, who has not only got 3 goals in three now and had a great start to his Leuven career. 2 of those 3 goals coming in this game, by the way. And very interesting and dramatic double substitution after 62 minutes from Leuven's T1 Mark Bryce. He brings on Rafa Holzhauser and Mario Gonzalez at the same time, and both players, within a minute of them coming on, provide the assist and the goal with their respective first touches. And I don't think I've seen that anywhere else in football. That's quite an extraordinary little moment in itself, that successful double substitution. What did you make of that, Joris? That was a bit of a wow moment, I thought.
Yeah, that was definitely one thing I wrote down as well. That's no obvious thing to write down about this game. It makes a bit more sense when you know that that its substitutions happened where at a free kick, and of course Holzhauser takes a free kick. But it was a really nice finish from Gonzalez, I thought. Though a real striker finish, like I said last time, and now it's this one is maybe even more shooting the ball in the a turning volley, and yeah, that's yeah, always nice goals to see, and keeper really doesn't have any chance to react on that. So yeah, 4 games unbeaten as well for Leuven. They do seem to have some striking force. Gonzalez indeed making quick first impressions, good impressions, and Nsingi also is actually a more unexpected one, but still performing quite okay. He didn't score in this game, but well, he has shown that he can fill in that spot if needed. For to me at least already, he convinced me that he should get some game time still. Good run going on, and every week I have to hold up my hands a bit more for my prediction. I guess I can already say that I don't see them having any issues, at least to stay in. They might have some drop off at some point, but so far, yeah, they're also even so far they're in the top four, so actually projected in the playoff one Champions playoffs. But yeah, I expect some drop off at some point for sure, but definitely off to a good start.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, isn't it? It's worth coming back to. You hinted at your pre-season prediction there, where you highlighted that you thought Leuven would probably go down, and I think it was within the first couple of weeks of the season, the three of us kind of talked about how proactive they'd been with a lot of their recruitment. And at that stage, the worry we had was they were still desperately short of strikers. They said they wanted to bring in a couple, which they managed to do before the window closed, and actually they've both done very well since coming in. And I think Leuven, I think it's fair to say, probably are the surprise package so far within the first 8 games. They're fourth, as you were saying there. Nobody really saw that kind of coming, and they're becoming a really effective kind of counter-attacking side. And I don't mean that in any sense critically. That's kind of a compliment. I think the system that they're playing under with Mark Bryce is kind of quietly effective, and the recruitment that's come in over the summer, over the most recent window, is kind of building upon the way they want to play. So they've been very targeted and been very careful, and they're starting to see the fruits of kind of the hard work and the changes at the club. The head of scouting left over the summer, the head of recruitment left. So there's been some big and important changes in the club, which are really starting to kind of pay off for them now. And hats off to Mark Bryce, who I've always said is a very underrated coach, I think, and club has stuck with him through what was a pretty difficult season for them last year, and they've really hit the ground running early, which is something that they targeted, I think, quite clearly pre-season. I know that Ed Still will be very disappointed on Charleroi part. He was speaking afterwards about how he felt they controlled a great deal of the game and deserved more out of it. But it's Mario Gonzalez, isn't it? Pops up with that late winner. Doing exactly what he's paid to do. Leuven looking really good, and I don't think many other sides at the moment on the form they're in are going to enjoy going there and playing them at the moment, because they're turning into an efficient and an effective side. There's no doubt about that.
I kind of want to touch a bit on Charleroi as well, not much, but yeah, they are having a bit of an up and down season so far. Also, Coffee was back in goal, but I'm not sure if it was already the best move, because I think the first goal is clearly at fault, completely misjudging a long ball, and yeah, the third goal, I also feel like he should maybe have done better because the ball goes in the middle of his goal, so he probably could have moved a bit quicker towards there. Although that was a nice attack and finish, quick finish from Gonzalez as well. But yeah, that just wants to mention that yeah, well, Coffee, we all rate him highly, but this was not his best
Yeah, I
game.
think you're certainly right to highlight their inconsistency. I mean, they're sitting eighth at the moment, and actually, when you look at they've scored 13, but they've conceded 13 as well. So they are a bit topsy turvy would be the right phrase. Winning four and losing four as well. They're yeah, they're not drawing games, that's for sure. And I think their performances have been there. You know what I mean? That's the interesting thing, and the thing that Ed Still will take in an encouraging note in amongst this slight inconsistency, in that they have been playing well in big chunks of games. They just need to kind of, I think, maintain that. Coffee being back is important for them, obviously, because he's a big player. Had one particularly impressive save in this game, actually, which I forgot to mention earlier, which was classic Herv Coffee stuff. So we'll see how they do it in kind of the coming weeks, because they've got an interesting schedule coming up as well. Let's move on, why don't we, to the first game on Sunday, which was Westerlo's game against Anderlecht. Westerlo getting another 3 points, another home win, and I think we must talk about Anderlecht. We can't kind of not, because yeah, they've had what statistically is their second worst start to a season in, I think, something like 20 years, which sounds bad. And I don't mean it to sound bad, because it's only really a 4 point difference, for a decent start for them. So it's not awful statistically speaking, but that creativity and the positivity that we saw over the first sort of 4 or 5 games appears to have completely evaporated. And what on earth do you think is going on, Joris?
The same thing as I mentioned in the beginning, a complete mismatch with the manager and the club, and I think it's showing more and more clearly now. Winless in 4 league games now in a row. That doesn't happen too often. They're 14 points clear of top now after only 8 games. Yeah, if you want to challenge for a title, even if there's a playoff system in place, that is not the way you want. Of course, that's not only in their hands, but also in the hands of another team we'll talk about rather quickly. The system is also not working. The blaming of the young guys has been coming now, but that these were also there and they were even younger last year. So it can't really only be that. Also, Mazu also resorting in the last few games to the a bit basic tactic of just throwing some extra attacking bodies in when you're behind, but without thought about it, just adding a few more strikers, and then therefore losing more of the midfield. I think they had 3 shots on target. One went in, one rolling shot from Sturkis by the back end of the first half. And yeah, that issue that they had sometimes last few seasons as well, that they are not efficient at the front end. This not working. And with Mazu, you would expect that the defense at least would be in a good organization, but that did not happen. Yeah, I really see a lot of similarities with Mazu's spell in Genk as well. And yeah, ironically, I might have to say that he did get a Coach of the Year, a Manager of the Year award just this Saturday, I believe, for last season's performance, of course. But ironically, like, he would already start arguing should he still be in the position he is at the moment. It's just, I'm not taking away anything of his qualities, but it is just a mismatch with Anderlecht and the way they want to play. I also watched a documentary about the club. They have some monthly episodes, or I don't know if it's monthly, but where Peter Verbeke, the CEO, was talking to the fans at the beginning of the season, in pre-season. They would not change the philosophy of the club. Then Mazu also appeared a bit later in the episodes, and it was my philosophy now. He was like, okay, that's then not there's something went wrong there, clearly, that this is just a complete mismatch. I'm using a lot of words, with my first five, I guess, were the most important. It's just a mismatch with the club, and I'm not sure. I'm starting to get really worried for him that he will not be able to turn this around. It's just not also not just one thing. It's like a lot of things are not going well, and basically nothing is going well, I guess. Even like, okay, the one thing positive you can mention is that Esposito got his first field goal. That he might also is off the mark, which could become important. They do need to. It was also just a flash of quality from himself, and not a completely well played out attack either. Lots of things that I could go on, I guess, but like lots of things that are just not in place at the moment there.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think this is a bit. It's quite, in many respects, it's kind of quite complex. Although there's some big obvious challenges there. I think what you highlight about Felix Mazu not necessarily being the right fit for the in-house style of football at Anderlecht is a very big question that all of us had pre-season as well, because I think everyone was aware that the way that Felice was going to play was quite different to the Anderlecht house style, I think. And Peter Verbeek saying, look, we're not going to change the template. We're not going to change what we're doing here, across the academy and the different age groups is definitely a worrying sign, and is definitely part of what's going on here. I mean, it all kind of is starting to get a little bit more unpleasant, because of course this week, after the loss, there was a gathering of around 50 or 60 Anderlecht fans waiting for the team coach to arrive back at Nearpede to talk to the players. And I think it was Wesley Hoot that came out and kind of calmed things down and met with them. And then we saw the rather strange, I certainly thought it was very strange and not a good sign at all, that club president Wouter Vandenhout decided to address the squad himself over the last few days and basically remind them of their responsibilities, and politely suggest that they get a bit more kind of grit and fight about them. And that seemed kind of a very strange thing to do, firstly because it's not obviously the role of club presidents to do that at all, to interfere in those coaching matters. No coach is going to be happy about that. And also, does he honestly think that Felix Mazu hasn't had conversations around that particular point? The one on grit and fight is interesting, because we've been saying, the three of us, haven't we, for quite a while on and off, that is something that the side lacks. And it certainly lacked that last season under Company as well, at points when they faced some challenges. We know that on their day, Anderlecht are one of the best passing and moving sides in the Pro League when they're at their best. But often, they lack a physicality about them, and have done for quite some time, that is certainly a major contributing factor to them dropping points. So some really worrying signs over the last couple of weeks. And I'm not sure things upstairs are functioning kind of properly either. I've seen some worrying signs there that I think don't quite add up. I think their recruitment has been decent from a business perspective this summer, but isn't necessarily converting into anything tangible on the pitch yet, which is slightly worrying. And when you look at their next 5 games, if you include Europe in this, they've got Steaua Bucharest away, they've got Kortrijk at home, Charleroi at home, West Ham at home, and then Mechelen away. It's not going to get any easier for them as we approach, as I was saying earlier, we're a third of the way through the season now. And there are some suggestions I've seen from some Anderlecht fans who think that a title challenge in any form is now unrealistic because of the position they've got themselves into. And you do have to wonder how much longer Felice will be given, which seems an incredible thing to say kind of so early. But two factors here. One, this is Belgian football, where clubs tend to panic and make big calls much earlier than they do in some other leagues. And some of those systemic problems that we've both highlighted are now kind of coming back to bite them a little bit. I should compliment Westerlo, actually, while we're talking about Westerlo and Anderlecht. I was very impressed. I don't know if you were, Joris, with Nasser Chadli's debut. I thought he had a very strong game and a good one. And when I was digging around some stats and numbers around lots of games over the last couple of days, I came across something quite interesting with a Westerlo connection. The most successful tackler this season is none other than Maxim de Kuiper. Now, I would, if you'd have asked me that, I wouldn't have said that without being able to go in and check the stats. So that was a surprise to me. And as we've been saying, their home form has been magnificent and their away form has been terrible without playing badly. So they're having a bit of a home away yo yo thing going on. But I thought Westerlo were excellent this week and certainly well worthy of their win.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah, also the first victory after three losses, so they also did need that, and that despite not being efficient as well. Like they probably should have scored more and put more past Van Krombrugge, but somehow they didn't. And actually, yeah, at some point in the game, Anderlecht even managed to equalize, which was probably not too deserved. And at that time, you would think maybe Anderlecht will get past them. Well, maybe we actually should highlight that second goal as well for several reasons. Yeah, the Esposito that had a nice goal. Yeah, gave away the ball on an Anderlecht corner where and Westerlo could counter. Yeah, and then had a some simulation dive where he probably should have made foul if it was if he would have known what would happen next. And then the aforementioned the Kuiper, well, had a brilliant run and vision and pass as well to find Agbunar, who scored his first in a Westerlo shirt. Yeah, I know you guys were a bit high on Agbunar as well, coming from Gostepe in the summer. I don't know the player that much, but his stats look decent, and now he's also off the mark. And well, talking about the Kuiper, of course, he also had a nice post-match interview. Yeah, he was decisive with the 2 assists. He also gave the assist for the first goal. From Vit Okele early in the game. Another issue of Anderlecht, they keep conceding at both ends of the game, so there might be still some concentration issues as well. Somehow, it's all linked, I suppose. But but the Kuiper, gave the assist and they get in the post match interview where I was going to go for. Yeah, it was again. He stressed again that this was really the game of the season for him, since he's still on loan from Club Brugge. And well, he's been really impressive so far this season. To be honest, at Westerlo, he's always been one of their best players and proven very valuable for them. And these 2 assists and these tackle stats, I also was surprised with that. I did not know before you mentioned it here. Yeah, do show that as well in numbers. Definitely want to have an eye out for. For the rest of the season. Yeah, and Shadley, indeed, his first minutes, he was obviously still not completely fit for playing 19 minutes, and you could see it as well that he petered out a bit in the game, but his first half an hour or so, at least, and maybe even the first half, I was impressed. You could see that he shows a bit of extra quality. And yeah, the main question for him is, of course, as always, can he stay fit long enough?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think if he can maintain the level he set this weekend, then I think he's going to be a very interesting loan pickup for them and is going to contribute quite a lot over the remainder of the season, I suspect. I know we talked kind of quite a lot about Anderlecht there, and it's worth saying that, to any Anderlecht fans listening, do get in touch with us here at the BFP and let us know what your thoughts are on what's not going right at the club at the moment, what you think the major challenges are. I've had some interesting conversations with Anderlecht fans over the last few days, specifically around that, and they've been talking to me about a general lack of stability at the club being a problem, and just some bad habits, and there seems to be a kind of split opinion as to kind of what's at the root of this, whether it's a coaching issue or whether it's related to decisions upstairs. I think there's a degree of panic around in the background at the moment, and that's certainly kind of being seen in some of the decisions. But yeah, Anderlecht fans, do get in touch with us and tell us what your thoughts are at the moment on everything at Park Astrid. Speaking of sides that may have be using the word panic, we should move on and talk about Cercle Bruges, who lost again this weekend, 2-0 at home to Antwerp. Antwerp now 8 wins out of 8, top of the table as we know. They've gone 5 points clear. Cercle probably weren't expected, based on Antwerp's form to win this game, but their form is kind of plummeting at the moment. No wins in 7 now. over the course of those 7 games, they've only scored 3, conceded 11. So we know what the issue is. They're struggling to score and not taking the opportunities that they do create, despite the fact that aside, everything else is kind of quite positive in data terms. Actually, we know this because I've gone away and had a look at a lot of the key numbers. So it's the biggest key number of all goals, of course, that they're struggling with at the moment. They're lacking composure. And I went away and had a look at their upcoming fixture schedule. I think October is going to be absolutely critical for them now, Joris. They've got Ostend at home, Ghent away, Union Saint-Gilloise away, Eupen at home, and Serang away. So 3 of those 5 games are against sides who are going to be in and about them at the bottom at the moment. They need to get some, major points out of that. And I think the next month is going to be absolutely critical for Dominic Thalhammer. We hinted last week that he was under a lot of pressure. I suppose the one positive probably is that all of the sides around them this weekend also lost as well. So that has been a positive. Things haven't got any worse.
Another positive spin, I guess, is that they already played against a lot of top teams, and maybe even all of them. No, they still have to play. Well, depends on what you define as top teams, but about the traditional top teams, they have played most of them already this season. So yeah, unfortunately, they did not get many points there. Although they did get their one victory so far against that other circling team we just talked about, Anderlecht. Yeah, that's that aside. Yeah, this was not the best of games in general. I guess you could say Antwerp doing what they need to do, a bit like Club Brugge. Job well done, just keeping Cercle out, even though Cercle actually in the end had a higher XG, expected goals rating, than Antwerp in this game. But yeah, there was not enough threatening things going on. Yeah, club record for Antwerp with this 8 wins in a row at the start of the season. Yeah, they still are. I believe that the total records in of the start of a season is 14 games winning streak from Club Brugge around 2000. But important to notice, I guess, is 4 clean sheets for Antwerp as well, among the better performing pupils. In a sense, these are a bit of two polar opposites. These teams in their efficiency in this game. Antwerp scoring twice about after not that much, without much created. Cercle Brugge still only 3 goals after 8 games. I think I mentioned it last week, so I'm not gonna hit that nail every week. But yeah, it is a very, very worrying sign, and that will definitely need to improve against these smaller teams in October. Let's say it like that. Let's put it like that. And yeah, still maybe a bit too vulnerable at the back because of their playing style, but that might also go hand in hand with indeed playing against teams with generally good quality that can actually exploit that, and they will exploit that when they can and are more efficient, don't waste their chances. And at the other end, yeah, they need to score more. Obviously, at some point, while I said in the beginning, quite a bad game. At some point, close to the break, there was a stat showing up on the screen with the passing percentage, and neither of the teams got a percentage higher than 60. Well, it was 58 or something for Antwerp, I think, and Cercle had even a bit less. Okay, also partly because of playing styles, but yeah, that's not a sign of a good game. Antwerp managed to up that percentage a bit. I think it was around 70%. Yeah, that they got. Yes, 70% accurate passes. Cercle only 61%. But yeah, especially there, it's a bit because of the playing style with a lot of pressure. It's pressure, putting a lot of pressure on. You also have to play the ball quick sometimes, and yeah, that then the accuracy goes a bit to a loss at some points, I guess.
Yeah, I was quite interested to hear Mark Van Bommel after the game this week. Obviously, the media were starting to get a bit excited about some of the records and some of Antwerp's own records that they were starting to kind of break. And obviously, next weekend's a big one against Serang because that will be their own record there. With 9 straight wins, if they can do that, something that hasn't been done. But it was interesting to hear Mark Van Bommel reference what we spoke about last week on the show, and that was his own record at PSV. where I think he won 12 or 13 on the bounce at the start of the season and still didn't go on to win the title, and talking about the need to continually improve. So he's very much about, keep calm, keep working hard. We haven't done anything yet, which I think is a very sensible approach. You mentioned last week they've got a very favourable fixture schedule kind of coming up as well over the next few weeks, which I think helps them insofar as you wouldn't expect the consistency that they've built up to take a knock as yet. Their first really big encounter is the game against Club Bruges just before, I think, the international break. So there's no signs of this run ending at the moment. Vincent Janssen continuing to pick up from where he left off as well. We discussed that last week. So yeah, I mean, here it is, our favourite word here at the BFP. I'm going to use it again. Efficiency. I thought Antwerp very efficient, did what they needed to do, took their opportunities. The opening goal, particularly interesting because they hit circle on the break against the run of play. Really poor goal to lose. Actually, defensively, I felt. They let Janssen get a yard on them, and it's one of those where if the defender doesn't allow the attacker to get the yard, the striker doesn't score. It's as simple as that, really. So it was really disappointing in that sense. But yeah, Antwerp looking good and having lots of reasons to feel good about themselves. We should move on really and kind of talk about your side, Joris, actually, who went to the Marion in Brussels to play Union Saint-Gilloise this weekend and managed to come away with a dramatic 2-1 win in what I thought was probably game of the weekend. I quite enjoyed this. I thought this was a really positive, competitive game against two sides who play really good football when they're at it, and we saw all of the positives from that. I should say I was quite pleased with Union in the sense that they didn't really have a negative reaction to playing in Europe, which they're going to be doing 2 games a week for a while now with quite an intense schedule. I was pleased to see that because I think a lot of people had that background worry that maybe there would be a reaction post Europe for them, which there was no real signs of. I felt that Genk controlled this game, particularly in the first half, which is kind of pleasing for them. Union were better in the second half. But what did you make of your side's performance this week?
Really well, to be honest. I'm more positive than you might expect. Well, okay, of course, not, of course they won, but also just because of throughout the whole game, actually, even when Union indeed took over a bit in the second half, defensively there was actually everything was quite under control. There were a few moments where I will touch on quickly later on as well, of course, but in general, the defense held their own really well and kept Union from a lot of danger. Now, there are indeed a few moments where it was not the defense's fault, but Rozovsky had a few weird moments in the second half where he at one point basically sent Van Zijl to Van der Voort, but the defense recovered, so that's already highlighting that part as well. Another time that he almost scored an own goal as well, I believe. He had a few weird back passes or back touches in that game. But no, in general, very pleased with the performance. First half, indeed, probably should have killed the game off already. The first few minutes, maybe 5-10 minutes, it was more quite even, and then Union were also attacking, but Genk gave them a bit of a taste of their own medicine in catching them on the break, and Paintsville with a very nice finish. Paintsville actually also being really lively, and that him getting off was also a bit of a turning point already. Not necessarily in the first half, everything was still okay, but the lack of wingers was, of course, showing because he's the only winger now that was still left that was not injured or has left over the summer, and they managed to not get any replacement there. And that part I'm very unhappy about. I can only cross my fingers and hope. Well, it looks like he went off more out of precaution as well, hoping that it would now be only a short time of absence instead of a longer one if he would have tried simply on. But he looked relatively okay after the game, but we didn't get an complete update yet. But yeah, he was playing really well. Also offered Tresor a really good ball, really good ball assist that Tresor maybe should have scored. But yeah, no, just in general, after these 5 to 10 minutes in the beginning, Genk took over while letting Union have the ball for a lot of the game, but yeah, keeping it controlled at the back. And in the second half, that changed a bit together with Paintsel was already first thing that hampered Genk a bit. Then a second thing was Onuachu, who got his first start of the season and actually, well, did his job really well at holding the ball. So yeah, the link up play was really well, but he had to come off. I feel like he got a yellow card, and well, in different games maybe he would have gotten a second yellow as well. Yeah, that so it was more of a precaution, as I think, as well for the potential red card. And then with Samata, a completely different type of player up front, it was more difficult to get to keep the ball. And together with some changes from Union as well, I believe it was Rodriguez who was really not having that much good game as a central midfielder in central midfield. Some changes. These two factors, the changes from both sides, made that Genk lost control over that midfield and became more under pressure. And that then one third point is then the disallowed goal from Van Zer, where I think it was correctly disallowed with Van Zer with Van der Voort blunder. Yeah, even though that was disallowed, I think that's like I felt something there. Like, okay, now they will be pushing on anyway, and they did for some time, and they did get a brilliant La Poussin goal for the equalizer. Yeah, but that was a brilliant finish, and not only finish, actually, really nice played out attack. Nice pass from Teumaf to line La Poussin up, and yeah, there's just something about goals being shots being really hard shots going into the top corner, hitting the bar, and then going in. There's something about them. And then it looked like Union were the more likely side to take over. That did not happen in the end. I think Genk restored it quite soon after that goal. There was not much going on, of course, in at both ends anymore. But at that time in the game, that was a good point for Genk. And an additional changes might have made the difference somehow as well. Galarza came in for I'm not sure if it was right before or right after the goal, but in midfield, and he really made a difference in mentality and duels and tackles and then just basically on his own bringing Genk back into the midfield battle. And battling out there, and yeah, that evened out the game a bit better. And Preciado also came on. He didn't do much, but he also poses a bit of a threat just with his pace. Just with that, that forced Union to play a bit more a bit differently again. Yeah, the pace that was lost after Paintsel had gone off, because yeah, El Canus can play there, or Tresor can play at his wings, but yeah, their main strength is not in the pace, but more in having the ball. And then yeah, the sweetest moment of all, of course, for me personally, of course, had to come still with Samata scoring his first goal again in a Genk shirt, first goal since November 2019 for Genk, and that on a corner already in stoppage time. Again, a taste of their same Union used last season twice against Genk. They scored in the final minutes in the stoppage time to make it a draw in Genk, and to take the game even completely in this specific fixture at the Dudepark. Very sweet one, and I would still say deservedly, but yeah, it's also a bit like both coaches, I guess, said like probably both teams deserve to win in a way, but yeah, I don't feel like this was a really stolen victory.
Yeah, you could really see Wouter Franken's delight actually at managing to kind of get the 3 points in such dramatic fashion late on in the game. He was really, really pleased with that at full time. You know, he's a manager who wears his heart on his sleeve quite a lot, and I think he enjoyed that, possibly for the same kind of reasons as you enjoyed it, because you're right, you know, Genk were on the receiving end of something very similar last season, which is always kind of sore to take. Two of the three goals in this game I thought were absolutely brilliant. Right, Lapizan's goal was wonderful. I thought Pansel's goal was really good too. Both of them really good football for those goals. Really, really nice. Just a quick shout out on Union's part to Dennis Eckert, who I quite like. I have to say, I thought he, obviously he came on, didn't play the full game, but I saw some signs of him that I think he could become a very useful player over the long term for Union. I like the way he works channels. I like his vision. I like his kind of decisiveness as well. He's an ambitious player, I think, yeah, who has some really nice kind of creative qualities. And Union have amassed a little collection of supportive strikers and options around Dante Van Zier now that, as they continue to search for the ideal recipe. And I think Boniface is the number one strike partner choice. I think that's right. He's clearly that. I think having the option of playing a Dingra and Eckhart with him, I think is quite exciting from an Union perspective. But I quite like the little flashes of creative inspiration that I saw from Dennis Eckhart this week. So I look forward to seeing what he can produce during the rest of the season. So the final game of the weekend was Ghent's home game at the Galamco, which they managed to win 2-0 against Mbaile's Zulta Varagim. And this result, Joris, had a slight air of inevitability around it.
Yes, indeed. Again, I guess a bit of a job done case. All games ended at 2-0. That coincidentally as well that I mentioned this specific phrasing. There was really not that much in this game in the first half, but Kuipers missed a big chance. He made up for that in the second half, and that really decided it. Zoltawarium, yeah, still toothless, and I'm really worried, starting to get really worried for another manager in Lindley as well
Yeah.
already. That like I mentioned last week, I think that storyline is turned really quickly, but yeah, there's really not much signs of improvement anymore. They're slacking again. Gent were okay, but they managed. They did what they needed to do, but without being that impressive either. I wanted to say they were quite efficient, but the expected goal stats are saying that they're more or less managed what they needed to do. So I guess I'll take that back. Zultawarium conceding twice at set pieces, and Gent scoring twice on set pieces might be a storyline to follow further in the rest of the season as well. But yeah, at set pieces, Zultawarium really needs. We all know they are vulnerable at the back, and set pieces is one piece of these things that of defending that you really can work hard on and train, of course. It's defending. The ball can always fall badly, but can at least try to defend it and be prepared for some situations. And I didn't have the feeling that this was the case. Yeah, and Zultawarium one shot on target to highlight that as well again, and not many more shots in general outside of that either. So yeah, at both ends, not looking great.
Yeah, I think not looking good kind of sums it up from them. I think, when I was watching it, and, I said this to you, didn't you, when we were chatting while the game was on, that offensively, there's just nothing there at the moment. There really isn't. It's not as if they're creating some things but not taking their chances. I think they're not creating either. And I think there's some major red flags there that we've hinted at in kind of coming weeks. And those little positive flashes that we saw in the first 2 or 3 weeks have kind of completely gone. I suppose the hope, and it can only be a hope really, from Mbaile's perspective, is that things will settle down and they will start to pick up some points. Speaking of which, looking at their schedule over the next few weeks, it's kind of tricky for them. They've got St Truden at home next, which is never easy because they're hard to beat. They then go away to Westerlo, who've been very good at home. They then welcome Leuven to the Regenbogen Stadion, who are kind of flying at the moment, so they won't be looking forward to that particularly. And then they've got a pretty big game now when they go to the Gildensporen to kind of play Kortrijk before they welcome Anderlecht. So, I don't see too many points in the coming weeks because of the way that they're playing as well. So pretty worrying for Mbile at the moment, and hopefully he'll be given some more time, because I just don't see what they can do other than kind of holding their ground and just, hoping that kind of things turn for them, really. Ghent managed to actually, they upped the intensity actually in the second half, and I think that's the thing that sort of got them over the line in the end, because in the first half I felt they were playing within themselves a little bit. But yeah, this game, as I was saying, had a general air of inevitability around it.
Yeah, definitely. And I just want to deny a bit that the difficulty of Zultwagem's schedule, because I also want to say in these eight first games they already played 7 out of the top eight, actually, the current top eight. So yeah, it's still easier than, well, on paper than what they just had. So it's also might be a factor of hope still, a bit similar to Cercle actually.
I think that's a fair point. I mean, when you look at, I mean, they are what they're 17th at the moment, and they're certainly conceding too many goals. They've conceded 15, and only scored 7. And that point about, hoping that things will turn for them. Obviously, the fixtures I was listing there, that they are games that, that there's certainly points in for them. I think the worrying thing is they're not creating, obviously, anything to suggest that maybe they could convert that into points. But we'll see what happens. And I do hope Mbale's given a decent amount of time, because he's a very likeable figure, I think. And I think he is. I said this when he was appointed. I felt he was a quite good appointment for them, provided they give him some time. Zalta as a club, actually, just when we think about this in a bigger sense, are quite interesting in that they're one of the few sides now in the top division that don't have, a lot of foreign money, if you like, in the mix at the club. And one of Zalta's challenges as a club is similar to Mechelen's, in that they've chose to stay local, and they've chose to kind of deliberately walk away from and yeah, not accept offers of foreign investment to try and buy them the extra margins that the club probably needs to develop longer term. You've got to wonder if they have another really hard, difficult, disappointing season, whether as a club they might change their view in that. That's more of a bigger existential kind of question for them longer term that I do wonder about. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there, because it's still early days, to be fair, as well. We should move on, actually, and kind of just have a wee chat about the Challenger Pro League this weekend as well. We're up to match day 5 there. Score roundup, if you didn't manage to see any of the action there this weekend. Beerschot lost 2-0 at home to Lommel. Dender lost 3-2 to Liers, who are kind of flying at the moment, top of the table there. Anderlecht under 23s drew 1 each with Club Next at the King Budowan. A very big, very empty King Budowan. Beveren won 2-1 at home against SL16. Young Genk lost 1-0 at home against Verton, and Denza lost 2-1 at home against Molenbeek. So in terms of the overall picture in the Challenger Pro League at the moment, the top 5 are Liège, Lommel, Beveren, Molenbeek and Beerschot, which is kind of, I think, how most of us expected it to kind of pan out. It's starting to settle down into what we expected to see. How those top 5 positions, if you like, 5 or 6 positions, end up at the end of the season, that's what we don't know yet. But the sides that we expected to be in there are largely starting to kind of find their feet a little bit now. The one thing I've taken away from the Challenger Pro League so far, Joris, is something you mentioned last week, and something we all know about. It's not new, this, and that is how wildly unpredictable it is, and it still kind of seems that way.
Yeah, definitely. Because maybe, as you mentioned, the teams that are up there now, we might have expected, but I did not expect Liers. Okay, we'll have to see if they can hold on, but to be this good actually so far, especially after that first game that they also lost, maybe with 2 big numbers, but they lost against a young Genk team. But afterwards, they have been really impressive and scoring goals for fun as well. So they're doing well. One thing from Young Genk to highlight as well, like, as disaster cannot strike twice. Well, Gods fell out again on the winger. I don't think it's a bad thing, any bad injury, so he will be back. But he had to be changed again. And Kelvin John, the only other winger left for both the senior squad and the young squad got a red card, and then 3 match suspension is asked. I think that this can be still be appealed, but there's something going on with the ringers at Genk in all ages, in all age groups, it seems.
That's a great point. We should have a chat as well about what we spoke about way back at the beginning about a brilliant week for Belgian sides in Europe. We can't not touch upon that. 3 wins and a draw across match day one in European action. Club Brugge winning 1-0 at home against Bayer Leverkusen in the Champions League. Anderlecht managing to get over the line 1-0 against Silkeborg. Union Berlin losing to our very own Union Saint-Gilloise 1-0, which was quite a historic result in its own right, actually, because not only is it Union's kind of return to European football proper in a group stage sense, since the early 1960s. I think it's their first ever away win in Europe, which is quite something. So a historic result on a number of levels. And the other result, the draw, Ghent going to Molde and coming away with a point, which I think is a very decent result. That's the one I didn't expect, Joris, because I actually thought Ghent were going to be the side that were probably the most likely to disappoint us. But 3 wins and a draw, wow, what can we say about that? Big up the coefficient.
0 goals conceded as well. That's a surprise as well, Bill. And well, grabbing that many points with only 3 goals scored. On the other hand, then well, you can't wish for more. You can still wish for 1 goal more for Ghent, of course. But I also thought that the draw was a good result for them to take away from in Molde, given the situation both clubs have been in. I know last week I thought they might be fine to win this one, but that was before I listened to the Nordic Football podcast. Yes, I'm dropping lately is quite some other podcasts and sources in, but where they were really positive about Molde and also Molde's chances against Ghent. But they did manage to keep them out. And was a debut of Paul Nardi as well in goal for Ghent, and he did a really good job there. So good signs for them. Had some fun because of course I'm in Germany, and who would have thought two German teams would be beaten by 2 Belgian teams inside 1 week? And yeah, I've had my fun around here.
That's right. I think that's a great point, and it's worth underlining actually as well, since you bring that up. The Union Berlin, the other union, are absolutely flying at the moment in the Bundesliga. They're doing very well domestically. So as well as that being a historic result from Union Saint-Gilloise' perspective, in footballing terms, to go there against a side they're doing very well in their own league and win was a fantastic result. But let's hopefully have more of the same this week. I'll take another 3 wins and a draw this week. Speaking of this week in Europe, the fixtures this week: Porto welcome Club Brugge, Ghent are at home to Shamrock Rovers, Steaua Bucharest welcome Felice Mazu's Anderlecht, and Union Saint-Gilloise are at home at Den Drief. Not the Marion, of course, because they're playing their home European games at Leuven's Den Drief Stadium. They welcome Malmo on Thursday as one of 3 fixtures on Thursday evening. So, yeah, definitely fingers crossed for the same again. Just before we go, we should recap on the upcoming fixtures this weekend for match day 9. Antwerp are at home to Serang in the game on Friday evening. Saturday sees Mechelen Leuven, Cercle Bruges against Ostend, Zulte Waregem against St Truden, and Charleroi against Westerlo. And on Sunday, we have Genk against Ghent, Eupen against Union Saint-Gilloise, Standard Liège at home to Club Brugge, which is on paper certainly the big game of the weekend. We'll see if it turns out that way in footballing terms. And Anderlecht host Kortrijk. So plenty to look out for this weekend. And as always, 3 of those games will be free and live on Mola TV Sports in the UK. So keep an eye on our social media, and we'll let you know which of those games will be the live games. It's been great to catch up with you, Joris. Thanks for joining me, my man.
Yes, exciting week ahead as well. Definitely on several levels, and it was great to be here.
Yeah, great. As always, it always is. Always a delight to talk about Belgian football. and we'll have plenty more for you next week as well. I think you know how to get in touch with us as well, so if you do want to do that, particularly Anderlecht fans, once again, really keen to know what you think about what's going on inside your club at the moment. You can get in touch with us a number of ways. You can tweet us at Belgian Podcast, or you can get in touch with the three of us individually. You can find me at Scott_Coin. You can find our Joris at Joris_Beck, and you can attack our Ben at Benjack94. Fantastic, everyone. We will have another action-packed episode of the BFP next week for you, so see you soon.